No,
Hello.
there's no video.
Wait. Hello?
Hello.
Oh, I can hear you now. Okay.
We've got Glenn coming on. Hi, Glenn.
Oh, hey, Glenn.
Oh, we have to unmute you. Unmute.
I am unmuted. Okay, awesome.
Excellent. We're just going to wait maybe a minute and see if anybody else is going to join us. I don't know how many people are going to come on for the first day, but we'll see.
Okay. And I hopefully won't get kicked out of the room. I forgot about the call today, so I didn't get myself a room. So I just went walking around, and when there was an empty room, I went in.
No, you're fine. That's hilarious.
So if somebody comes up and says, hey, I think we have this room, then I'm going to have to leave.
Where are you? Are you in a workspace?
I'm at the workplace right now. Yes, State Farm Insurance.
Oh, cool. Are you in Bloomington?
Yes.
Oh, fun. Okay. How'd you hear about this?
Megan.
Oh, awesome.
She was one of my besties from Rotary. So.
Oh, fun. Awesome. Well, we're super excited.
So, of course, via her Facebook timeline, I saw your stuff for Time Rich. And I'm like, I've been needing a VA for I don't know how many years now. So maybe this is the opportunity to jump in and see what they can do for me.
Heck yeah. Awesome. Okay. So we'll just get started. And if anybody joins in, we'll just say hey to them. And if you get kicked out, then that's fine too.
Okay.
We'll be really flexible. And by the way, this will kick us off. So we can not last any longer than 30 minutes. So it's kind of a good way to monitor ourselves to make sure that we're not going over. So today was about seeing what they can do for you, what a virtual assistant can do for you. So did you open the first packet?
I did.
Excellent.
I even have highlighted some stuff here. I also try to skip ahead a little bit. So last week I was searching for some of the websites for VAs and was kind of disappointed in some of the search results I got back. So
Interesting.
It was almost like I had to already have a complete job description ready to go to post for someone to take and run with. Whereas a lot of my stuff is a little more nebulous than that. I have areas that I need help in, but it's not real well defined yet.
Okay, I love that. I think that's really great. So the
question for you then is, can I get started when I'm that nebulous, or do I really need to work on these ideas that I jotted down and firm them up into defined packets of work before I go for a VA?
So that's a really good question. And I think that it really depends on what kind of virtual assistant you're looking for and how much you're looking to pay. Because if you're looking for someone that's just a general virtual assistant, anywhere under $15 an hour, anywhere under 10 especially, you need to have something really specific to assign to them. Okay. And have kind of a process created for it so that they're getting it and understanding how to do it and not just, potentially messing it up over and over or, taking way longer to do it. So do you know how much your budget is for it and what you're looking for?
I haven't decided yet. When I first started looking, it seemed like most people were in the $12 to $18 range from looking at these other sites. You hadn't shared with what your favorite websites are yet, so I just kind of went off to Google and started looking. I guess it's almost where I have to pick, not necessarily by the job, but what the capabilities of the person are. Okay, yeah. And I'll describe it a little bit further. Is many times, we have a new person joining.
Yeah. Hey, Jason.
Is it Jason? Okay.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So many times what?
So I need someone who I can say, let's see, what's a good example? I need a scheduling system to build into a website because I want to reserve, in my case, campsites for the weekend. You want to reserve it for 24 hours, 48 hours, or so on. And I need to have a way to bill them for that. As well as maybe have an agreement that says you agree to my terms. Yeah, I can describe it like I just described it to you, but I don't know what I'm looking for. So I would need a research assistant to go out and find something that falls into that category and maybe show me some options.
So would you need somebody to actually build that for you or just research what exists? Because that
What
sounds like two different.
research
Okay.
what exists. Yeah,
Okay.
because I'm not looking for somebody to build anything from scratch. So,
Yeah.
hi, Megan.
So I think that you could have someone as you're kind of developing it with the person. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be more specific than that, but you would have to say, once you research the first thing, come back to me and we'll follow up. And then I can set, like, I would say maybe give them 2 hours so that you're not like spending a lot more money, right? You hire somebody, you form a job description based on needing a research assistant. You decide how much you want to spend per hour, and then you would check in on them. Say, okay, what have you completed? What does this look like? How long is this process taking you? Oh, this isn't actually, like, you can have them help you form those expectations as they're working on it, because if you're really unclear, then they might actually like provide more clarity, or they might mess up and you're like, oh, okay, that's not at all what I was looking for. And now you're more clear about what you are looking for. So we've got one other person. So I think that would be a good starting point. And then
I saw a little arrow going like this. That must mean somebody else is joining. Okay.
Yeah, really good. So Glenn's question is, does he need to like really get clear about the job description for a virtual assistant to identify like a lot of this tasks that he wants to do? So what day one is helping you do is get really clear about the tasks. But if you're hiring somebody and you already know, like, you'll see later on also that Megan actually is hiring somebody specifically to do research for grants. And so she has a specific thing too.
That's on my list.
Yeah. So it's not like a general VA, but it's like a specific thing. And so she is working through getting clear about that and creating the process for that. And we actually go into that a little bit too. So if you want somebody just like a general VA, that will cover that as a task, and then maybe more of like additional tasks later. Like that might be somebody that you hire as a general virtual assistant that can research and can do other things. Or you can look for just a research assistant and, you know, just get clear about how much you're wanting to pay. And then we also will give you websites that we recommend. And a lot of times once you tell them what you're looking for, they will, if it's a marketplace, give you back like somebody that they recommend to assist you. And so then you'd go through that process, and we go through that too. It'll be later this week. By the end of this week, you'll be like, oh man, like I already know exactly, hopefully, what I want in the virtual assistant, where to find it. And then you're like already on track for onboarding. But yeah, I think that's really good. Those are good questions that I think that you need to get clear about if you want to hire one person specifically for research. And then if you want them to work through it with you. Like I always say, don't let them co-pilot the plane because you don't want them to alter the vision. But if you're working with them and following up, like I would say an hour or two, you should be checking in saying, what have you gotten for me? Like cap it, like say, I do not want you working on this for more than 2 hours without checking in with me. And then you can kind of just assess what they're doing and see if that's in alignment with what you're wanting. And you can reassess and say, oh, just don't get frustrated and say, never mind, this is garbage. Like, I don't want to do it. Like, if they're not doing it right, it's probably the process that's needs some work. And so you reassess, okay, you know, actually, I think what we're looking for more is, you know, in depth, right in this area. Or I'd really expected you to have 7 more than what you had, right? I expected you to have 10 instead of 3. So what can we do to make sure that, you know, there's, you know, just reassessing, if that makes sense.
It does. Okay. So I have like a whole list, but I see there was other people who called. So is it best to break up? Because I'll just give you an example. So that was a research example. I do need someone to manage my Facebook page for my business. Doing periodic updates. I need someone to manage my contacts. So I'm changing topics again, maybe with Constant Contact or MailChimp. I don't know, something of that nature, so I can manage my email. I need someone to help me with creating some presentations, so they have to have PowerPoint skills. So, you know, that's like 4 separate jobs if they're in different categories, you know, like you had on your paper. But I don't know if I can hire one person who can do all these things. That would be awesome. I could give them a list of 20 things I want them to do over a period of time. So is it best to break it apart and go after individual people, or to try to get Okay. I'll wait for the answer then. I just feel like
Before you
I'm
try to
getting,
answer it yourself.
getting too much out. We got 30 minutes, right?
No, it's so good. I love this question because we actually broke it down like that, not because those are different positions, but because it helped you understand where that would fall into. But the general virtual assistant and then versus specialized virtual assistant, those are two different positions, but they're not necessarily within general virtual assistant, different positions. And so to answer your question, you very well could have one person doing all of those things if you are clearly communicating each of those things. And what I like to say is that you do not hand somebody that does not know how to juggle 4 balls and tell them to juggle, right? And so what you would do is give them one project initially and make sure that they're able to juggle that. And then once that's good, you've communicated well, you have you've processed it so that it can be ongoing. Then you say, all right, cool. So would we be able to talk about doing 2 more hours where you'd be able to create PowerPoints for me? And you throw that ball in and make sure that they're able to juggle that ball. So it's not like you're just like, unless you do hire people that specialize in each one, and then you still have to communicate very clearly. But I would say that one person could very well do anything that's under the general VA things.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then once you're in the hiring process, which we'll explain too, you would just specify, I need someone to eventually do blank, 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 and blank. And this might change. I might add more things to it, but I'm looking for somebody that starts at 5 hours, works on this one project, and then it'll grow into other projects or something like that, where you should have an expectation for how long something is going to take or the maximum hours that you're willing to do for that. But we'll get into that too. So I think that's a great question. And I think that it's good to clarify that all of those under general VA could be done by one person. And then the specialized ones, like if you want somebody to create the PowerPoint without you knowing what you want on the PowerPoint, that's going to fall into somebody that specializes in whatever area you want the PowerPoint to fall under because they're co-piloting the plane. But if you just want somebody to just like throw up the images and, you say, but set specific parameters with that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah. And
so we'll
as
let
we get
Holly
into
and Jason
more,
ask questions too.
as we get into more, I think those questions will definitely come up further within this week. And you'll realize that it's starting to be answered within the content. And if it's not, then you bring that up and that's awesome. We can add it into the content too.
Okay.
Cool. Jason, Holly, do you guys have any? I'm going to unmute you guys so then you can jabber on also. Do you guys have any?
On this video real quick.
Yeah, you're fine. Holly is on her phone. I can see.
I missed the first few minutes. What is the general reason for today's Q&A? Is it just general questions or?
Did you see the packet that were you able to download that at all?
I'm trying to see. The only thing that I found was a questionnaire in the original email. I got the email an hour ago, so I may have missed the one before that.
Oh, okay. So was the one an hour ago, was that welcome to day one?
That was the we're excited, can you tell?
Yeah, that is welcome to day one.
Okay. That was in there.
So if you go to the timerich.com/day one.
Video and packet here.
Yep, perfect. And so that's the video.
To be honest, I'm wicked behind just because I've been spending like 14 to 16 hours a day trying to get my house ready for the market.
Everybody here is overwhelmed. That's why we're here. So it's totally okay.
I'm more of a listener today, so feel free to everybody else ask questions.
If you have any general questions. So to answer your question, today is mostly about what a virtual assistant can do for you. And then in the packet, if you have time to go through it, we highly recommend. Ollie, there's your video. So we highly recommend that the video is really short. It's less than 10 minutes. And every day we try to do less than 10 minutes. Usually it's around 5. It's just really simple. I want it to just be like an introduction to what's in the packet. And if you don't have time to do the packet, it's kind of like an overview. And so it should, and then the questions and answers, it's really just, even if you don't have time to do the packet, you should be able to hire the assistant by the end of the week because we're able to answer those. But the packet will help you go really in depth So like we researched, and actually the 50 plus things, those are all things that I have done as an assistant. So like we did a ton of research, and then I was like, let me just like type all of the things that I've done. And so it ended up being like a list of like almost 80 that I was just off the top of my head within 10 minutes, like I've done these things. And so those are just things that we know virtual assistants can do. And so that'll get your brain jogging, like saying, oh, I have this on my plate. Like if you don't know what a virtual assistant can do for you specifically, this will help get you going. And then with the packet, there's also like things you hate doing, things you want to get done, but know that you can't do. Like it breaks it down so that you can write in those things too, just to get you started realizing that there's so much a VA can do for you. And doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can be like, just things that you hate doing. And so that's more about what today is, but it is just like a general introduction as well.
Okay.
Cool. Holly, do you have any questions?
I mean, I'm just kind of wait and see what happens this week. But I think my biggest holdup has always been just, I guess like transferring like data or something, like, so, cause I have a lot of photos, obviously I'm a photographer. And, so like if a lot of the things that I need to hand off are things involving photos, and I know like you're probably just going to say, well, just use Dropbox, which I guess, but I don't know, I feel like so much of my business sits on my laptop, and a lot of that stuff would need to get to the other person. And then other things are like I've had interns in the past, and I have them come to me to do things like, handle my receipts and, like enter my receipts into a spreadsheet and that sort of thing. And then it's like, well, I don't want to like scan all that stuff and send it to them, because then it kind of defeats the purpose. So that's just kind of where I'm at with moving forward.
So that's interesting. Okay. So you could just do Evernote or something where you just take a quick picture and then it's uploaded and you guys have a shared account, something like that.
Yeah.
Or there are like receipt collection things where you guys would share an account. Yeah, it does like now add double, but if it's paper receipts and you're having a virtual assistant, there's not much like that you can have them, unless you're having them enter in, like one of my clients, I enter in bookkeeping from her credit card. So I just go into her credit card account and then just download every single week. I download her statements and I just enter those in. And so like, that's just something. And then I'm the one that talks to the accountant. So like, that's the like virtual bookkeeping. If you have specific receipts, you could just take a picture and then have a shared account.
Yeah, that could work too.
If Dropbox doesn't work for you, there's a ton of alternatives for where you can keep the photos. Like what, you said you're going to say Dropbox.
Well,
so what?
Like, I did the time tracker last week, and one of the things that I have been doing more of, and that is taking more of my time, is like creating, like you said, the graphics for Pinterest, like from my blog posts. And so then they would need to have like access to a whole bunch of my photos for that, to be able to make those graphics in Canva or whatever. And it's like, I know where all that stuff is. So I just go pull it real fast and bring it in. And so that's kind of where I get stuck, I guess.
That's a really good question, or statement. So what I like about that is that the initial investment in time will save you long term. I know that you know where everything lives, but if you create a process for where everything goes and it lives online, which is way more secure too, and you're able to access it if your computer crashes or anything like that too. So once you create a process, and you can have a virtual assistant moving things over. You could even have them like access your desktop. There's a ton of different ways to do that, but you can have them help you with a process that you can create, and then something that is ongoing. So it's an initial investment in time, but like you said, you're spending a lot of your time per week doing this. And so just imagine if you could take that one thing off of your plate by creating in a process, like initially ongoing, that will just alleviate a ton of time off of your plate. And so like what's great about what you're working on is that you already have created those or that one of the Canva at least templates for your Pinterest. They can literally look at that, and as long as you are specific about what you want, they can recreate that constantly. And so yes, they will have access to your photos, but I would assume that those should live online anyway, at least in like stored area. So if you have them like if you create a process where they know where to find them every single time, like,
Yeah.
I think that would be easiest long-term for you too. Like if you already have a process for it, just share that process with them.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a process for that, I really think that it would be easy long-term to create that process and to maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like, if you say, like for each blog post you say, and this will live, or the picture for this will live in, or lives in like folder under personal brand photography, March, right? Like they'll be like, oh, okay. So then they just are able to go in, like just create the process initially, and long-term that will save you a lot more time. And like I said, you can hire somebody and they can help you create that process too. So it doesn't have to be like this whole thing.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay, great question. Anything else?
So I guess one of the, and I'm sure this is what you're going to be getting into this week, is essentially where I'm at is kind of the cost benefit analysis of budget that I don't have, to say, okay, I understand that a VA is going to help me achieve goals that I can't achieve. So therefore that budget is actually worth it if I can find it.
Mm-hmm.
But where all the information of, you said you can get a VA for $6. Obviously that's probably your baseline. And then it goes up from there with specialization or tasking, things like that. So that's kind of the hook. And then the reality is, more than likely, if you're looking at a higher competency of VA or a US based or this, that, or the other, now we're getting into certain dollars per hour, and then looking at a budget to say, okay, I could give this 6 months, I could give it 100, 200, or 50, or what does that look like to say, okay, what is a good way to get my feet wet in this? And obviously you're going to give a roadmap to having success from the get-go, hopefully. But that's kind of where my head's at coming into this is,
Totally.
I know that it's something that's needed. I know that I do have some low-hanging fruit that I could use some help in, but also kind of juggling what those budget numbers might look like.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a really good question. And Megan and I are still actually trying to figure out how, like, we've created a whole budget plan for that. But first you have to know what you're looking for and with what website and what your preferences are for the VA. Like if you want them to be international, obviously they will be cheaper. And for onboarding an international $6 an hour VA, that's a very good question, because you do have to create processes that are very clear, especially if English isn't their first language, right? And so you have to know if that is important to you. Like if you're just having them do grant research, it might not be as important. They might be able to just like literally verbatim click, copy, paste, put it on a document and, do those things. But if you want them to communicate with customers, now you need to create templates for them to communicate with those customers and things like that. So what I would say is, if you don't have the money initially, then you would be giving them tasks that would contribute to you, like monetary producing activities, right? And so like you would have to build in a budget where they would be not necessarily making you money, but able to at least put things in that would make you money, or that you would now have time to make that money. So like you would have to choose what activities you want to give them based on now that needing to be the number one like return. Does that make sense? Like, that answering your question? I know it's kind of like it's a rough question, because I completely understand, like, and honestly, when we're creating, so we have like a whole handout for creating your budget for your VA, but it's hard because you don't know whether you're going to get a $6 an hour versus a $10 an hour. And even if it's a specialized, it could be 10 to 20, right? And so that could be a $17 an hour, or it could be a 13. And if it's expert, so it gets a little like confusing, right? So if you can set aside, okay, I know how long this task will take to complete. It'll probably, for this grant research, be 14 hours. So I can not pay anybody, like my cap for the entire project is $500. Do you know what I'm saying? And then within that you say, okay, if it's $500 and it will take 15 hours to complete, then my budget is, and you kind of work backwards from that. If it's an ongoing task, then you have to decide, like, if you need someone to specialize in something, if like what your like cost per week maximum would be for that ongoing task, and then still work backwards, break it down into what you can afford per hour. And like that would just kind of specify how or that would decide how specific you have to get with your procedures and for creating that initial investment with time. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it does get complicated, but I don't think that it has to be as overwhelming, right? Like, you can decide one project that you're going to outsource that will help you get the time that you need to be working on the money generating activities within your business. And so I would say that that would be your top priority now, is not dealing with customer emails or whatever, but being like, okay, this is taking the most time from my money producing activities. That's what I have to outsource. So now it changes your priority for what you need to outsource first.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's where you would go through the list and decide not things I hate doing, but literally things that take time away from me producing money.
Okay.
Yeah. And just choosing one thing and outsourcing that initially and creating the cap for your budget. Yeah, I know that was a lot, but I'm trying to get as specific as I can with that question without knowing exactly, you know what I mean, what your budget is and different things. But yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. And that's what it's all about, right? It's like, you can't spend more than what you're going to be able to get in return too, but it is the investment for what you're going to be able to make eventually once you're taking things off your plate. Cool. Does anybody else have any other questions? This is good. I'm super excited that I was really nervous. I'm like, no one's going to show up. We'll just have to like talk. Oh, Megan, you're muted. Oh, I don't know. You might
I can't
have
hear.
Yeah.
I can't either.
Oh no. Wait.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I do have a question. So Jason brought up a similar, I guess, challenge that I was facing when I was trying to go through this process as well. And I'm curious, can you tell me a little bit more, Jason, about what it is that you do?
So my website is the Nomad Experiment, which is the defining goal is really to have a platform to help people be better today than they were yesterday and better tomorrow than they were today. That can come between, me creating content about whether it's writing articles or reading a book and doing a review that, somebody might read and say, oh, this is going to help my life, or doing a video that helps them, be more comfortable with the place, traveling to a place, or anything in between that, because I have a lot of varied interests and things that I'm good at. But that's the general theme is it's a website where the goal is for me to be a positive conduit into the world instead of a negative conduit into the world. So whatever that turns into. So all that said, I love writing. I love doing the video and shooting the video. I enjoy editing the video. I think there's a certain style that I want. So I don't know that I'm ready to hand off any of those things. I think there's a thumbprint that video needs from the person that's creating it. That said, being on camera is a major thumbprint there. All that to say, the website, my traffic is low. I create my images in Pinterest. I'm a graphic designer by nature. So one of my businesses is graphic design. The other is the Nomad Experiment. So there's certain pieces of that I do myself. Bottom line is I need more traffic. I need some things fixed on my website, and I need, likely to free up some of that time. So Pinterest, I create all those images. They all go into the posts. I don't do Pinterest though. Like, I'm not connecting, all the pieces are there, but I don't have the time to do Pinterest. Or
Jason,
I'm not very active in Instagram. I'm not very active on Facebook. I'm active enough, but all my audiences are still pretty low.
I have a question. So you kind of got into it a little bit, but what would be your first money generating activity? Like, what would bring you money, like initially?
So that's a trick question, because like 2 months ago I had a dark period in all of this, and I realized that I was concentrating too much on monetizing, and it was poisoning kind of what I was trying to do. Once I said, okay, Jason, give yourself 2019 to create things that are of worth to people, the monetizing will come. My creative juices have been flowing. I've been writing like crazy. I've been doing those things. So although I want to be cognizant of putting the pieces in place,
Double-edged sword.
and when I do a book review, you know, yeah, I'm putting an Amazon link in there. I know that I'm not going to make my money off of affiliate linking like that. You know, I'm not going to make $1 million doing that, but that's the important things to put into place. So that's why I say right now, my goal, I'm making my money off of graphic design for the rest of 2019. That's my goal. And I don't necessarily need help doing that, but I want to put the Nomad Experiment in a place where it's rising. And when I want to start potentially speaking at conferences or interacting with people in those ways, I have all of those things into place. So I'm not as worried about monetization right now. I'm worried about building that audience.
I think that you and I need to talk about marketing more, but this is not my marketing course. So, because I think that that's a really, I mean, you get into really interesting, like being on every platform and different things. But I think that if your goal isn't to necessarily make the money on your like passion project right now, I think that you need to decide when, like where you're going to get your budget for your virtual assistant. And then you are able to have them like start with the activities that are going to get you like more in that budget, if that makes sense. So maybe you do have them help with graphic design, not graphic designing, but like outreach to clients or taking care of some of the day-to-day stuff, which isn't building your passion project yet, but maybe that's the first thing, is helping you generate the money to pay for that virtual assistant. And then you like enter them into the Nomad Experiment more. Does that make sense? I mean, that's just one suggestion.
Well, yeah. And to be quite honest, for me, the budget's not that big of a deal. I'm funding myself through the end of the year. So for me to find a couple $100 a month to look at the bigger picture and say, hey, this is just pure investment right now. It's not necessarily, I'm comfortable with that. It's really just a matter of where's the best place to put that to say, I'm going to get a good amount of growth if I spend the money in these areas. I believe you have to spend money to make money. So eventually that money will return itself. But you know, right now, so I agree with what you're saying, but honestly, taking that budget piece out and saying, okay, let's assume Jason's willing to throw $200 or $300 a month at this for the rest of the year. Well, that's only $1,000, $2,000 investment. And in the long term, that's going to help. Then it's really just a matter of saying, okay, what are the realities? What can I look forward to as far as VAs, and what's the best way to approach that? So, which obviously we're going to get into.
Yeah, I think that you really need to do the first packet. I would say, like, at first I was like, oh, well, like if you don't want to, like, that's fine. But I really think that these will, like, because we spent the last few months, like, going over these questions, like, because what's great is that Megan is literally hiring a VA for a company she works for. And so we went into this with those questions, like, okay, where do we even start, and like dig through all of the things on your plate, because I know every single person taking this is overwhelmed with a lot of things, right? So getting specific about what to hand off, even initially, like we can, you know, circle the things that are eventual, but the initial, like taking on a project that's going to be like causing you a lot of anxiety, or that you really hate doing, or that is a money generating activity, like these will help walk you through like what that will look like.
And I'm good at doing my homework.
Yeah.
A little crazy. My photographer was here today. My house lists tomorrow. So it's been a busy month.
Yeah, that makes sense. Megan, did you have anything to add to that? Nope.
Really,
oh, okay, good.
And can you hear me?
Yep.
No, I think that was really helpful. I really appreciate you explaining that. And I think I'm kind of I think a lot of, maybe all of us here are in that same boat of, we value impact more than we value specific like monetization, I guess. And so I really like how you were explaining more of using your passion to better the world, and having a VA help you through that journey means that you're giving yourself more time to be able to spread your reach and to be able to spread your impact even more. So having somebody, possibly do research on different magazines you could be featured in, or different conferences you can present at, or different ways that you can get your work, whether it's graphic design or Nomad Experiment, out there into the world, could be kind of, I think, kind of helpful in both ways of what you're looking for. So not only are they taking a lot of things off of your plate by doing that research, but that research that they're doing is also, it could help generate revenue for you and increase your exposure too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I mean, that raises something really valid within this course that we try to emphasize like constantly. Like when we developed this, it wasn't about making more money. Like it's really not. Like this whole course is about getting more time, and that's our real, like that's the most valuable commodity to us, and I know that it is to everyone. So like that is something that we emphasize over and over and over in this course, is like we want you to feel time wealth. And so whatever that means, that's what I think we're hoping that you like utilize your virtual assistant for, right? Like, I mean, you decide what your VA does for you. This is all just to get you comfortable with the idea of having a VA, what they can do for you. And then we get really into the hiring process. And by the end of the week, you should have a VA working for you if that's what you decide to do, or you should be well on your way to getting that VA working for you and onboarded. And so, yeah, and having your time is definitely, I like that you pointed that out. Thank you. All right, is there anything else? Because we're a little over time and we're going to get kicked off in 4 minutes.
Good.
Awesome. Cool. We're really excited that you guys could join us today. And tomorrow, be prepared because we are getting really clear tomorrow. So today was about getting real, using the data that you have and looking at the data that we gave you. And then tomorrow is about getting really clear with what tasks you're going to be handing off. All right.
Okay.
In the meantime,
Thanks.
make sure that you can email us your questions and we'll get back to you too.
Yeah. Email us at any time. Thanks, guys. I hope this was helpful.
Okay. It was.
you.
All right.
Have
Thanks.
a good rest of your day.
Good.
Bye.
Bye.